Well, good morning, kids. Pastor Al, thanks for joining me this morning. You know, we talk a lot about dogs, and it's kind of easy for me because I've had dogs almost all my life. I have pretty much liked every dog I've ever owned, but there was a couple that were kind of a mistake. When I lived in Michigan, right before I moved here, I used to hunt a lot, and I went out one time hunting with somebody with a beagle. Beagles are very good at chasing rabbits around in a big circle, and I thought, how cool would it be to have a beagle and be able to take it out hunting? So I got a beagle, and then I discovered that, well, beagles don't do very good alone, so I got him another beagle as a buddy. And they were the only dogs I've never been able to train and used to completely drive me nuts. And the way that they drove me the most nuts was when they escaped. Because what I discovered is that beagles are absolute escape artists. Let me show you a little video of someone who had a whole bunch of beagles in a pen outside, thought it was completely closed in, no way for the beagle to escape, kept having a beagle to get out, so he finally put a camera on it to see what happened, and look what he discovered. Yeah, that's pretty amazing, huh? Well, what I discovered was that my beagles could literally climb my chain link fence in the back of my yard there in Michigan. They would get out, and then literally sometimes we would chase them for hours. For hours. And not only was that exhausting, but I was afraid they were going to get hurt or killed or get in trouble. So I did something that I kind of didn't want to do. I put a hot wire around the top of my backyard fence. Now, a lot of people in Michigan didn't know what that is, but out here in cattle country you do. It's a thin little wire that carries an electrical charge. And if an animal touches it, they get a pretty good shock. Not enough to injure them, but enough to really get their attention. And I put it up there and waited to see what would happen, and every now and then I would hear this "ow" from the backyard of a beagle who obviously climbed the fence and got their nose up to that wire. Now, most dogs will learn not to touch that wire. After doing it maybe one or two times. We figured it took the beagles 5 or 6 times to figure that out. And then about every 2 or 3 months they would have to figure it out again. So it was the only way I was ever able to keep them from escaping my backyard. Now, it worked, but it only worked because, well, I forced them to. I used this kind of powerful, magical thing to keep them from climbing up the fence and leaving. And I'm sure it mystified them. And I'm sure it made them hurt and angry, but at least it kept them safe. Sometimes I wonder why God doesn't do the same. I mean, God wants us to do certain things and not do certain things. He wants us to love Him and to treat each other well. Wow, why doesn't God figure out some amazing godlike way to put up kind of a human hot wire and keep us from doing all the wrong things? And And then I think about, well, if God did that, he would take away all of our freedom. And we use freedom for good, but we also use it for bad. But more than that, we would probably come eventually to resent God. We follow God because he forces us. We follow him because if we don't, we're punished. And I don't think that's what God wants. I think God wants us to love him. And if we're going to love him, well, then God can't force us to love him, can he? It's kind of not how love operates. So when you think about the world and you think about God and you think about, well, God, why don't you do more than you do? You have all this amazing power. Why don't you show it or flash it or kind of force us or force people to do the things you want? I think the reason is because the thing God wants more than anything else is for us to love him. And in order to do that, he can't force us to do it. He has to have a very light hand. So friends, sometimes you're going to sit there and wish to yourself, wow, I wish God would do more. But then understand that if he did more, then he wouldn't wind up having people that loved him. There would be people who would obey him out of fear. And one of the things the Bible tells us is that perfect love casts out all fear. Think about that and know that God does love you, does not want you to fear him, and wants to be in a relationship with you forever. Not because he forced you into it, because you wanted to be into it. Thanks for listening to me today, guys and girls. Have a good week. Bye.